Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Pizza Man Productions.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend. Welcome back to the Scott Townsend Show. And today I have with me a legend, a personal hero. This is a high watermark for the Scott Townsend Show. Lee Cockrell, former executive vice president of operations at Disney World, who's now retired and inspired, and he's got a lot of good things to say. He's got a fantastic podcast, 4 books out there. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Thank you. Good to be with you. Glad you included me.
Yeah.
I don't talk to people from Oklahoma very much anymore.
Well, maybe hopefully we can change that. But
yeah.
Well, welcome to the show. I don't even know where to start. I'm just kind of freaking out a little bit because Lee, for those of you listening or watching on YouTube, this interview, I've followed Lee for a long time on his podcast, and I've referred your podcast to so many people. If someone's got if your episode had a certain message that I thought someone needed to hear, I would send it to them. As a matter of fact, you probably don't know this, but I referred you to Whitney George and Jesse Anderson at Church on the Move in Tulsa. They were looking for someone to speak at this event, and I think they were thinking of Gary Vaynerchuk and some others. And I told them, I said, you need to look at having Lee Cockrell come, because I knew they were heavily influenced with Disney methods and stuff,
Yeah.
So as it turns out, it worked out, and I was there when you were speaking at the event. So I went to meet you afterwards, and all the books sold out, and then they whisked you away, and I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway.
Yeah, I actually spoke to them a second time after that first time where you recommended me, and it was great. I actually, about this time of year, first time was for their conference where they have pastors come in from all over the world, I guess. And the second one was right before Easter. And then they actually, after that, they hired Marty Sklar, who I recommended.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And so you put a lot of people back in Oklahoma.
That's cool. That's cool.
It was great.
Well, I've got all these questions, and the reason why I wanted to have you on, number one, is because you're a hero of mine, and I don't mind gushing like that because that's just the way it is. But as far as listeners go, it seems like a lot of times the reason for this podcast is betterment, is to help people be better, perform better. I mean, just we talk about a lot of stuff about leadership and management and overcoming obstacles and things like that. So who better to talk about stuff like that than you? So I don't know, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Quit talking. I need to quit talking. So just kind of give us, the listeners, a little bit of a background of who you are, and just a 2-minute synopsis of your
I give a kind of background. My Oklahoma, grew up in Oklahoma. I was born up in Bartlesville, and then we lived.
So that's where I'm from.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. I'm in Bartlesville right now.
Worked for Phillips Petroleum for 25 years, and actually before that, she was an elevator operator at Penny's. So she's the lady that drove the elevator back in the 30s, and wow. She was a great lady. But actually, I was in Bartlesville the day Eisenhower came for K.S. Adams' birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he came right down the main street, and I took the bus from Ardmore up there to see him.
Well, I'll be.
So that was my trip back to Bartlesville. But then when I was born, shortly, we lived up in Copan on a farm, a dairy farm. We were just as poor as could be. Of course, kids don't know you're poor. We
right.
got dinner every night and place to sleep. But it was a fairly dysfunctional family I had. I'm not sure how it affected me. But my mother was married 5 times over the years. I always tell people she was busy, and I've been adopted twice. I got my name Cockerell when I was 16 by husband number 4, who was a doctor, and therefore I got to go to college. And I hadn't even thought about college. It's, a little town in Oklahoma, Ardmore. Most kids didn't go, actually. And we'd never even talked about it. My parents were not paying attention to education much. And so I went to Oklahoma State for 2 years. I was not a great student. Eventually, I say I left, but I was getting close to them throwing me out, I think, with my grade point average. And I went in the Army in 1964 and Fort Polk, Louisiana. And you didn't have a choice back then. You were either in the Army or in school, and with
Right.
the Vietnam going on. And actually, I was in the reserves. I got out after 6 months, met a guy in there from the UK. He asked me, "You want to go to Washington with me?" I had never been out of Oklahoma besides that trip down there to Fort Polk. I didn't know anything. I never read the paper. I didn't watch the news. To me, the world was Ardmore. That was it. And so we drove to Washington, and I got a job at the Washington Hilton as a waiter. The hotel was about to open in 3 weeks, and I was one of the first ones there. And luckily, they hired me just because it was an opening. And somebody took me by the hand, started teaching me how to do what I had to do there, and I had a very successful career starting after that. And I think the reason I'd tell your listeners, I don't have a college degree, but I figured out the best way to get ahead is to have a good attitude and to be reliable. And those are 2 things I really relied on in my whole career, was attitude and reliability. So I tried to be the best little waiter they ever had. If they
That's
said come at
awesome.
5 in the morning, I just said no problem. And every time I said no problem, I got promoted a few months later. And then I got a job in the accounting department, and I became the food and beverage controller for the operations there eventually. Met my wife there. We got married. We moved to Chicago. Then I got promoted to Chicago, to the Hilton on South Michigan, and then to the Waldorf Astoria in New York. And
That
then
must have been a big deal.
oh man, that was unbelievable. I coming from Oklahoma, I had the Waldorf. I mean, I was like, what is going on here? When you move to Washington or New York after living in a little town all your life, it's like pretty shocking.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, there's a lot of things I don't know. And so stayed with Hilton 8 years, ended up in Los Angeles eventually, left there, joined Marriott for 17 years, became the vice president of food and beverage planning and operations for them worldwide. And the main reason is because I had just focused on food and beverage. I'd been a cook, I'd been a chef, I'd been a waiter, I'd been an outside catering. I'd done all the jobs, and
You were a cook in the Army, right?
yeah. And I learned from that experience that people, and I think today too, people want to know what you can do for them. And I happen to have a lot of expertise, and going into the accounting department and learning the finance side really kind of rounded me out for that. And so I did that, and then eventually I kind of got sick of Hilton and ended up at Marriott, and my career just kept growing in food and beverage. And then I was a general manager at Marriott, and then I got recruited by Disney in 1990 to go to France and open Disneyland Paris, all the restaurants, which I did. We were there 3 years, and came back to Orlando. They asked me to come back after 3 years, and I was head of operations for all the hotels at Disney, and then later on for the whole operations everywhere. And I'm still shocked that they gave me that job. That just proves nobody knows what they're doing, and they don't know what they're doing. So, and it is really true. When you go into a bigger job or something, you just kind of learn as you go.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that if you're reliable and you have a good attitude, everybody helps you. And it really, I came up to the conclusion nobody knows what they're doing, so I was in good company. And so so it was just great. And I did work all over the world. When I left Oklahoma, I'd never been anywhere except maybe I went to Dallas once to get a suit. My mother bought me a suit. And now today I've been to 45 countries, do work all over the world, and it changed me pretty dramatically. And I've been married 55 years. I think
congratulations.
I talked to my son once, or my daughter-in-law, Daniel. He's now in Australia as president of a university there. and they just moved there last week.
Yeah.
Got 3 grandkids that are 28, 25, and 22. One's in France, one's in Boston as a biomedical engineer, and one's in Manhattan in marketing and international business. So
That's cool.
I scooted right along, and I went from 18 to 80. I'll be 80 next week. So
Oh my goodness.
that's a dangerous age.
Is it? Sounds kind of sounds like it.
So I've had a good career. It was great. I fell into it. I had no idea what I would do that, but hospitality's great and it's growing. I mean, there's a huge demand for people to enter that business. And my grandson in France is majoring in hotel and restaurant administration, and he's but you know, with the cruise ships and travel, people are traveling more all over the world. And so it's an industry that is going to keep growing. And so I'm glad I did it. It was a lot of fun. It was crazy business. You know, 7 days a week, you got customers that are happy and ones that are unhappy.
Right.
And then go to Disney, which was like, you know, everybody goes to Disney eventually, apparently. Yeah. And I learned there you really got to do it better than ever, because the expectations are so high when they come to Disney and they're spending their own money. It's not an expense account,
right?
You know, they really you got, and that fantasy, that whole thing's got to work, because if a mother comes with a 4-year-old, she doesn't see Cinderella. They came after me, and you know, there's nothing like a mother that's not happy.
Right.
And we have to really be on our toes there to keep it all. You know, we say fantasy is real at Disney and reality is fantastic. So it was a tough job. And people say, boy, it must have been magical working there. No, it was not magical. It was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, you know, we had 9/11 and hurricanes and recessions and just like everybody else. And we had to keep doing it. And usually have a couple 100,000 people in the parks for every day. So, and humans are difficult sometimes.
I was at Oklahoma State in hotel and restaurant. I was not a hotel and restaurant major, but I was taking a class that in relation to hotel restaurant management. And the only thing I remember a professor saying at Oklahoma State was, and at the end of the class, he said, and Disney's going to be here next week to recruit for the Walt Disney World College program. So, boy, I went to the library and I got some books and read up, you know, and so anyway, Nick, I don't know if you knew Rick Neely, but anyway, sure. He hired me, and I still got the acceptance letter. I framed it, and I got.
Oh, look at that! Yeah, what year was that?
88.
Wow. Well, my son Daniel was there in 88. I think he did the college program.
Yeah, I was. They put me in the parking lot of the Magic Kingdom driving a tram.
Well, by the way, that's where he started too. You guys might have worked together. He started in parking.
Yeah.
And he said the first day the manager told him, Daniel, we do everything for a reason here. If there's a safety cone there, do not move it. It's there for a reason. Everything is planned.
Yeah, and that's the truth. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
In a parking lot, they would have big binder notebooks with policies and procedures and things that you had to follow. And if I said Chippendale, Minnie, Pluto, Goofy, Donald, Daisy, Dopey, Sleepy, Happy, Grumpy, Bashful, and Sneezy, I said it a million times. And but you know, you're right. The guest experience, it starts way before they get there. But even in the parking lot, in a parking lot as big as the Magic Kingdoms, it's easy to lose your car. It's easy your battery doesn't start when you get back out. And so they get on the tram and you hold up for everybody, and then you put on it's acting, you know, it's welcome, you know, but I can't remember all of it, but
it is.
You make the loop and you drop everybody off, hope they have a great day, and they're all excited. And and at one time, I'll tell you a quick story and quit talking. There was a family that came and got on the tram. They had a handicapped a little girl. She had braces on her legs, and so we held up extra long for them, and they got on the tram, you know, and I could tell that she had a huge smile on her face. She was so excited about being there. And so we took off and went to the Ticket and Transportation Center, and dropped them off, and off we went. Well, I worked 2 shifts that day, and so I was there in the evening. Now, in the evening, this is when everybody's hot, tired, broke, kids are cranky, parents are cranky, And so we pull up to the ticket and transportation center, and people are getting on the tram. And I just, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the same girl that we had picked up that morning. I never recognized people from, but in this case, I did. And she was so happy and just this smile on her face, and she had it looked like she had a lot of reasons to be sad and depressed and all, but I'm telling you, she still looked like she was having the time of her life. And what that told me was everybody from me to all the cast members didn't break the spell. Everybody performed, so that this little girl who's probably had a hard go at it, with whatever she was dealing with, they did a really great job. And even to the end of, even when she came back to me, she was still on cloud 9, with all the things that she experienced. And I'll never forget that.
Well, the lesson there, and it is in any business, everybody matters. As you go through your experience, or you go to the bathroom and it's not clean, or they're out of stock, or they don't open on time. There's a million ways to ruin the experience, and
Mm-hmm.
so many times we don't pay attention to some of the positions because they're not that important. Let me tell you, they're all important.
Right.
And if they weren't important, you ought to not use them. Get rid of them, save your money,
Yeah,
save the payroll. But
exactly.
that was a lesson for me working at Disney too. Everybody matters, and yeah, that's good. That's great.
What initially drew you to work for Walt Disney World, and what was your first role there?
Yeah, I was at Marriott, and I'd gotten passed over for the last big job, the one I really wanted, and so I went off to be a general manager of a hotel, and I got approached by Disney because a fellow who worked for me at Marriott I ended up working for him at Disney. He had left and gone to Disney, and he was going to be the executive vice president for opening Disneyland Paris resorts. And he called me because I had food and beverage experience, which he knew, and he needed me, he said. And so he hired me, and off we went. And my wife was open-minded about it. She said, yeah, let's go do it. And that's half the battle, because when you're in a project like that, you're not home much, and we had a lot of divorces over there. Families that just the pressure and stress for the years, and
Oh yeah.
so it just happened, and it was my lucky day, I think, because I tell anybody who can work in a international country you're gonna learn a lot and grow a lot, and you're gonna have to be a little more humble after that. Every time somebody spoke French to me, I about had a heart attack. So after about 6 months, you get over it though, and you figure out how to communicate. And
Yeah.
so I was approached, and I think again, there's the lesson. They approached me because I knew something they needed. So I tell everybody, become an expert in something. I don't care what it is. Become the best, the go-to person, whatever, and people will find a job for you. And we know that today with technology. If you're an expert in some part of technology, there's 100 companies want you. They don't care where you went, where you live, who you are. They need the expertise. Yeah.
Can you share a particular time at your tenure at Disney that was particularly challenging? When you look back on that time, I'm going to guess you're going to mention one of 3 things, but there's probably a time or two where, it was tough.
Yeah, well, actually, part of the tough time I had is when I first got there, because I was even though I came from Disneyland Paris, I was the outsider. They still call me the Marriott guy, and everybody's not happy for you when you show up, especially people who've been there 20 and 30 years, and people think they should have got the job. Why'd Lee get it? I'd never worked in a theme park in my life,
Yeah.
and so that was difficult. I really had to work on that and be available and listen to people and find out what was going on and educate myself because I think there were probably a few people that wanted me to fail. And so that was hard. And then
Did you
the hard
focus on
times were
them?
like, huh?
Did you focus on the people that wanted you to fail? I mean,
Uh,
how do you navigate that situation? Do you focus
yeah,
on them or do you focus on the people that are there to help you? And
I think what you do is, first of all, you don't always know who they are.
that's true.
You know, I mean, it's obvious. The higher you go, the more people probably you're in competition for a promotion, and
Yeah.
somebody gets it, somebody doesn't get it. And no, I just tried to be open to everybody. So the first time while I was there, every night for several weeks, I had a big session where I invited everybody to come, anybody, hourly management leaders, and they could ask me any question they wanted. They could fax it in so they didn't have to read it. And I answered those questions about who I was and how I work and what's important to me. And slowly but surely you build up trust. It's being available and being known and talking about what you believe in, letting everybody know is I think that the clarity of expectations, how we're going to work together here. I'm
Mm.
interested in your opinion. I'm always available. That kind of thing, and then time proves whether you're going to be that person that you said you were going to be.
Right.
And
They're
then
all
I had a great
watching.
team. I really had a great team over the years. At one point, I had the perfect team. It was unbelievable for about 2 years. I had the not one. Every person on my team was amazing. It was like being retired then. I mean, they
Wow.
were so good. And then the hard times, of course, with 9/11, and of course, hurricanes were not easy,
Talk about
and
9/11, huh?
recessions are really hard because you end up
Yeah.
having costs and sometimes lay people off and yeah, that kind of stuff. I'm sure the pandemic for them was even worse than 9/11 because it lasted so long and they ended up shutting down the parks. I mean, I thought 9/11 was tough, but I think the pandemic was really hard on everybody there.
Right.
And
Talk about 9/11, just if you can. The morning of that day, I remember where I was. It's funny, that morning in the office, one of the office ladies said it. I just heard on the radio that a small plane had hit one of the World Trade Centers. And that day, I had a meeting downtown in a building that was designed by the same guy that designed the World Trade Centers in Tulsa. And so I'm up on the 11th floor and I look out the window and I thought, no, if a plane was coming at me, what would I do? And I thought, I would just run to the center of the building, easy as that. Well, when I got home and saw the news and saw all that was going on, there would be no running to the center of the building. There is no place to go.
yeah,
And so, what was that morning like when you guys first started getting?
yeah. I was sitting in my office about 8:15. My wife called me. She was with a friend, and she said a plane just hit the World Trade Center. And I thought, oh well, you don't think the worst. You think, okay, this could happen, I guess.
Yeah.
And uh, I walked over to my boss. We turned on the television, and then not wasn't long. Second plane hit, and after that. We're going like, what is going on here? Nobody knew. And then Pentagon, and then we opened our command center, and we can open it in about half an hour. And we closed all the parks immediately and sent everybody back to their hotels. By 11:30, we had everybody out of the parks in their hotels, and because we just didn't know what was going on here.
Yeah.
And then we had to kind of take care of the guests. They were in their hotels. We sent the characters over because a lot of our guests are from New York, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were really having a hard time. Firemen that were here on vacation wanted to get back. Um, and then nobody could get on a plane. So we had these people in the hotels, and a lot of them's credit cards had expired. A lot, so we had no charges. We probably spent $1 million that day on just letting people eat and do. do what they had to do. And it was a few days before flights were available, and all the rental cars were gone immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody could get a car because people did. And so, yeah, we managed that and went through the day. And when we knew it was kind of calmed down, the next day we actually opened. But we have a whole procedure for an emergency like that. We practice 2 or 3 times a year. You get a call in the middle of the night and you have to activate, and they put you through a 4 or 5 hour simulation of everybody shows up, and you keep getting scenarios sent to you, and here's happening, and you have to make decisions. So we were, we knew how to do it. We did it perfectly. I mean, the sheriff is there, the fire department's in our command center, somebody working with the radio station about, we can tell the cast members what's going on, the schedule. And so we pulled it off, and we lost 35% of our business that day, cancellations for the future, of course.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of cost we had to take out. We had to take $400 million cost out, and we had about 2 or 3 weeks to do it. So we were in a room with the whole team for day and night, figuring out what to take out, what hotels to close, what not to do anymore. I mean, it was and I tell you, that's when you're glad you got a good team, because there were people a lot smarter than me about what we could do, because they knew the business deeper than I did.
Mm-hmm.
I just sat back and gave them, tell me what we should do here. You know the business, you've been there, you know what we can do, what we can't do. And that's when you decide not to be the boss. You let other people that know what they're talking about step in. And yeah, somebody said you can have authority, but that doesn't mean you know anything.
Right.
And so it was real hard. By Christmas, though, we had pretty good business. Nobody flew.
Yeah.
People were scared, so the parking lots were overpacked. People were parking on the grass.
Yeah.
Parking lots have never been that full since. And it gradually came back. But who knew? I mean, I never even imagined having an experience like that. But then the pandemic, oh gosh, I really feel bad for them. 28,000 cast members got laid off, closed the parks. You do a little damage to your culture during that time when people, they put me out of a job. So when people say I want to be a leader, I say, why? Are you crazy? When you say I want to be a parent or a leader, I said, no, it's very hard.
Yeah, you have the wrong idea. You obviously have the wrong idea of what this is all about.
Yeah, it wasn't magical. So we went through a lot of time, and there was so much, there's a recession every 3 or 4 years, so you have to deal with that again. What are we going to do? Wall Street wants you to get the costs under control. The company does. And it was the same at Marriott, it happens.
Yeah.
I was at Marriott when we had Legionnaire's disease in 1976. About a bunch of people, Legionnaires, died at the Bellevue Stratford Hotel from the air conditioning bacteria.
Yeah.
Same thing. That was supposed to be a record year in 1976 in Philadelphia, where the Liberty Bell is. And it was we had our own recession just in Philadelphia, because nobody would come. They were scared to death. They didn't know. Nobody knew. So you never know what's around the corner. So I always tell people, make sure you're getting ready for a crisis, because it's just a matter of time. Don't wait till it happens and try to figure out what to do. It's like, have a fire extinguisher in your house before the house burns down.
Right.
And so many times we wait, and then we don't have the right plan, or you talk to your kids about how to get out of the house. You have your little fire drills. A lot of this stuff is preparation and anticipating what can happen and preparing for it. See, so many people buy a treadmill after they have bypass surgery. They ought to buy it before.
Yeah.
And so life is unpredictable, and it happens when you least expect it. You got to be ready.
Disney is known for having such a high standard of excellence in customer service and operations overall. How did you maintain those high standards, or even improve those standards throughout your work at Disney? How do you do that with 40,000 cast members, making sure that everybody's on the same page doing the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty simple formula that I think anybody listening today can implement in your company. Say there's three things we do better, and any company can do it. We hire better. You know, I say we hire the right people. We take our time. We're looking for somebody with a good attitude. It's going to be reliable. And can do the dealing with Disney guests all day is not easy.
No.
You know, a lot of demands, and so we hire right. And I'd say the second part of hiring right is dealing with people who don't belong there. Right, when you make a mistake, you got to terminate people. You got to get them out of the business. If you were clear with them and you explained to them and you hired them and they can't do the job, that's the hardest part of being a manager. You got to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing we do is train better. I mean, we have clarity of expectations, and I'm sure you know there, everything's got a reason. They tell
Yeah.
you what the reason is, and your boss knows about it, and the managers are out and about in the business,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we're, Bill Marriott told me the only way you get excellence is have education/training and enforcement. You do it and you enforce it. The biggest problem in most companies, they don't enforce their own rules, policies, things go, favoritism, and that's, so we have hire them right, train them right. And then I would say the third thing we do pretty well is treat people right. And, we have people working there from 100 countries and they're from all over the world.
Yeah.
And there's no anything to do with racism or bigotry is not, don't even think about it.
Right.
I said we may have racists at Disney, but they're very quiet. They better stay quiet.
Yeah.
And so we hire them right, train them right, and treat them right. And I think if every company would just think about their own company in those three ways and evaluate, are we really hiring the right people or not? I guarantee you, everybody today listening has got somebody in their company that shouldn't be there.
Right.
And they're not doing anything about it. And the training's they're not clear about expectations. That's why people say, well, you didn't tell me, or I didn't know. I even tell people today, make a list of the 10 things, the 20 things, whatever it is that you want every person to know, and you put it on a piece of paper, and every time you hire somebody, you go through that and go through it and go through it. And so that we don't have these lapses of not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you've hired the right leaders, treat people right, just be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
Today across the world, it's people, everybody, the way we treat each other is sad.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? Poor guy. And these jobs at Disney that people are doing, they're living on the edge, a lot of them. They're not making a lot of money.
Right.
For them to come in and to perform like that every day, wake up in the morning and come in and deal with Disney customers and guests all day long.
And it's hot.
Sell an
and
ice
humid.
cream cone in 100-degree temperature for $8. And so it's clarity of expectations and having the right team. It's just like everything, I said when I was in high school, we had the best cheerleaders, but we lost most of our games. So cheerleading's not the answer. I mean, it's part of it, but we played other teams like Lawton, and they didn't have good cheerleaders, but they beat the hell out of us. So it's about performance,
right?
Isn't it? Inspiration's good,
right?
But it's whoever has the best players who know the plays and feel like they are somebody, and that's how you win. And we see that everywhere. And it's not much different. You think about it. You go out to business, you go all day to different companies and businesses, and I do too. And you run into these people that have no clue what they're doing. They got an attitude. They don't call you back when they say they will. It's our own fault if we're not doing a good job. I tell people today about 99% of the problems in your life are your fault. Literally. If you've got somebody who's not working there and not doing their job and you let it go, it's your fault. I mean, it's not my fault that, if you didn't train them, it's your fault. If you don't, think about it. We like to blame everybody. I tell somebody the other day, if I have a problem, it's not Donald Trump's fault or Biden's fault. It's probably my fault. So I get over that blaming. And I think too, people got to sit back and think, what am I not happy about? And what do I, and then do something about it. We sit around. If you are unhappy about something and you can figure out what it is, there is a solution. I tell you, you might need a new wife. You might need to put your kids up for adoption. You might need to go to the doctor. I don't know, but there
Hey,
is a
honey.
solution. Yeah, that's what I was. So, but we sit and have the same problem for 10 years, and it's usually there was a solution. Or maybe take your wife and go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or maybe
Right.
she gets rid of you, and then everybody's happy. So, but you can be happy, but you got to make hard decisions.
Right.
And the main thing most people don't want to do is make hard decisions. That's why we don't coach people. They're not doing their job. That's why we don't fire people. That's why we don't want to have hard conversations. And when you don't do it, nothing happens. It gets worse. And then you get a culture which the guests are not getting what they think they paid for because we advertise it's going to be magical.
Right.
And sometimes it's tragical, not magical. And you pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
So,
I think leaders, to me, in the when you're talking about enforcing what you want to see and helping employees get better, I see the role of the leader almost like a doctor, where the doctor prescribes, if you went to the doctor and the doctor said, here, so you've told me, we've talked, and so here's what I want you to do. Here's my prescription. Here's these pills, here's this exercises. Come back in 3 months and let's take your lab work again and see where you are. Well, that's great. But for some reason, when we get to work and the manager says, okay, so tell me what's going on. Okay, so here's the problems. Here's the prescription for how to fix it. And come back in 2 weeks and we'll talk about it. For some reason, we don't like that. But we like the doctor, but we don't like management telling us, prescribing a remedy for a behavior that they want to see.
Because we don't like feedback, especially men. I don't like my wife telling me what to do.
Yeah.
But I've gotten over it.
Yeah.
It's just a natural, because somehow we think we're great and we're doing fine, and women are much better at learning what they need. It's a man, and men, we think we're in charge, and we know everything, and it's that macho thing. And you got to get over that, because really today you got to be able to work with all kinds of people, because they're coming from you got to focus. I say only focus on one thing: performance. Don't worry about where they're from, what color they are, what background, what religion.
Right.
Can they do the job? Do they do the job? And do they do what they were trained to do? And if they're not doing what you train them to do, you step in and you say, okay, what's the problem here? Let me talk to you about this. Didn't we talk about this? Well, it's like being a mother. How many times did your mother tell you to clean your room? It never ends. When you're managing people, it's over and over and over. You got to be telling them every day.
Yeah.
It's true. Did your mother ever say, how many times do I have to tell you?
Yeah.
Well, that was a reason, because she's been telling you the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's how eventually, if you stay on it, somebody tells your mother, they say, you have such a great son. She says, you don't know what I went through. The guy was, because we want to do our thing. We don't want, and most things mothers want us to do, we don't like,
Yeah.
When she tells you to shake hands with people when they come in the house, and
say
clean your
please,
room, be polite,
Mhm.
Put your napkin in your lap. We're going, wow. When you're 12, 13, 14, you know, what is she talking about?
Right.
But somebody said your mother's always disciplining you for the person she wants you to be when you're 25 years old.
Right.
Not who you are today, but who she
Right.
wants you to be. And I think
That's
that's a
good.
good lesson. And when you talk to employees about their performances, and it's the person you want them to be, so they have success and they get promoted. And coaching and discipline is hard.
Yeah.
That's why most people don't do it. It's very hard. But you got to get used to doing it.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to work in a leadership role at a company like Walt Disney World, or anywhere really? I mean, what advice would you give someone who wants to be that? Earlier you said whoever says they want to be a leader has to be crazy. But let's say someone did say, I want to work, I want to go up, up the ladder, up the ranks, and what's the I don't think there's any secret, but what would
There's
you tell
not,
them?
but I think there's three things you got to think about if you want to be successful. And really education is one, and it may be formal. You may finish, get your degree, you may not, but to really have that thing about reading, leading, staying on top, learning things. But the big ones are experience, getting experience in the kind of work you want to do. And that's why I tell you, when I was growing up in Oklahoma at 16, you had a job. Everybody
Yeah.
worked. I worked in a drugstore. I worked in a lumberyard. I worked after school. But experience and exposure, being exposed to different things, different people. I think experience and exposure probably develops you quicker than anything else. When me going to Washington D.C., that developed me pretty quick because
Yeah.
it's live, it's happening, you're in the show,
Yeah.
and so many people don't get varied experiences. And you can think about in your own life, the things you learn through experience,
Hmm.
probably a little better than what you learned at Oklahoma State.
Right.
You
Hmm.
probably can't even remember what you learned at Oklahoma State. You learned about how you deal with people through experience and
Right.
job exposure and tough times and hard conversations. And so I think that's I tell everybody, I tell graduates today, as soon as you graduate, get out of your village, go to a big city, meet people from all over the world, learn different things. After 5 years, if you don't like it, you can go back and do it, but get that exposure. It's you can't get it any other way. You got to go do it. And your mother may not like the job you took in New York, but that's the way it goes. You got to look after your life, and I think a lot of kids are getting a degree, but they're not getting that experience and exposure. And then they get into, it's there's nothing like experience burns it into your brain, man. Let me tell you. Just think about some experiences you had. You can't learn that in school. And it might have been a bad night. You didn't sleep well after that experience, and but you'll never forget it.
There's a one story you told in your podcast about your early days as a banquet manager or something with Hilton or Marriott, but you were talking about how somebody busted a beer bottle over your head.
That was in New York. That
New
was in
York.
Astoria. I was a controller there, and I got a call from the manager saying a guest had complained that they thought the waiter was cheating and not presenting the check properly and all that. I went down and I walked up to the waiter. It's in the middle of the Peacock Alley dining room. And I said to the waiter, "Could I see your checks, please? The guest checks." And he was holding a tray with beer bottle or maybe I don't even know if it was full or empty. And he started shaking. And I said, no, and he started blah, blah, blah. I said, "No, let me see the checks." And that's when he took the bottle and smashed it over my head. And I got 8 stitches here and 6 in the back of my head.
Oh my gosh.
And turned out I was right. But but the union was so strong in New York, they didn't fire him. They thought they wanted me fired. And
Yeah.
that's how this thing turned out. So he stayed, I stayed, and about 6 months later, I tell people I shouldn't say this. I think it was the YWCA called for a reference on him for a job. And I said, "Oh, he's great." And he left. But yeah, I don't want people to think it's dangerous in the business, but
No, but yeah.
emotions, people get emotional, especially if you catch them in a stealing and yeah, and so that was a good lesson for me. My wife said, "Lee, do you think people hit you because of the way you speak to them?" I said, "Yeah, probably."
So they used to
And
call you the bulldog or pit bull or what, the Doberman, or what was the
Doberman, yeah.
Doberman?
I got hit again after that at Marriott too. So I got 8 stitches in the back of my head coaching a guy who had told him he had a bad attitude, and he got out of the chair and hit me with a clipboard.
Oh my
And
God.
so I haven't been hit since 1973, so I'm doing pretty good.
How did you change, or what adjustments did you see yourself making uh, to go from Doberman to a more
Yeah.
enlightened leadership approach?
Well, I can tell you this, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. I was very insecure as a young manager. I didn't have a college degree. I'd grown up in this kind of dysfunctional family. Uh, I wanted to be successful. You go and work, you don't want people to know what you don't know. And so when I became a manager, I was pretty autocratic, and I kind of abused my authority. I tell people what to do, and I'm very organized. So when I say I need that at 4 o'clock, man, you better have it ready, man. And I got a reputation for Lee gets it done, but he leaves bodies. I mean, I did not play around because I wanted to be. I had a fear of failure, and I didn't. I was insecure. And I went through a tough time once with an employee who told me he went to the hospital to get observed because I was coming to visit him in El Paso, and he got so upset because of my reputation. And after that, I really went through a lot. I started going to seminars, reading more, trying to understand what made me that way, and I was able to change. And my problem was I didn't trust anybody. I
Yeah.
had this lack of trust. And so if I'm in the manager, I can make you do it, and nobody challenged me because they knew I would kick their butt. And so I got away with it for a few years, and I was getting good results too. And my boss let it go. He didn't say anything either. But eventually I worked my way out of it, and I started to trust people more, and that I was the problem. They weren't the problem. And so it's a tough go. I mean, we all have issues. I tell Priscilla, my wife will tell me something about somebody. I said, they got issues. I'm sure your wife will tell you, you got issues.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And we act those out, and they create triggers of, you know, somebody not getting something done on time that I'm responsible for turning in. I probably gave them holy hell. And instead of being a little more empathy and a little more discipline and a little more training and teaching. And I tell people today, don't be the boss, be a teacher. If you want to teach, you want some better results, teach people.
Yeah,
And if
that's
they didn't
good.
give you what you wanted, then it's probably your fault that you didn't teach them properly.
Right.
And start to understand who's at fault here, you or me. And it's like in my marriage. I was always trying to change my wife. It turned out I was the problem. So when I quit criticizing her, she got better immediately.
Yeah, I
And
always tell that.
that's what we do.
Yeah.
We don't like criticism, and we don't like, it's that insecurity. You see it all the time. When you run into anybody in life that's mean and treat people badly, I guarantee you there's a low self-esteem, insecurity there.
So you evolved from someone who was a high performer, but insecure and not very confident. Were there practices or methods, or what was what were the switches that you might have incorporated to increase the insecurity to being secure, and from not confident to being almost overconfident? How do you
think what
make that?
happened was, as I started to be more successful in my performance, my confidence got better about my ability. And also that I started going to seminars on leadership and management, and reading more about it, and reading about leaders who didn't have any authority. But, when you think about Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and they made these big change, people followed them. And I had to learn to be more open, to accept people, to be available, to listen to people, to not overreact. I started to learn these things when you go to these courses. We all go to courses, but do you implement them?
Yeah.
And I really paid attention to, okay, I need to do that better. And sometimes it took me a long time to be able to do that, and to make sure I was careful before I addressed somebody's performance problem, about do it in the right way, say it in the right way. Don't make them so insecure that they can't sleep tonight. And so it was a process. It took me a long time. It probably took me 7, 8, 9 years to work my way out of that. I got a little better all the time, and I still have the potential to not be very nice, but I don't do it.
Don't we all?
Because what I started thinking is people got enough problems. They don't need me to make more for them. I mean, everybody's got problems you don't know about, and it's everybody worries, problems.
That's true.
And so I try to be more supportive, and I'd say today, when I was at Marriott and Hilton, people probably would not have come to my funeral. Now they probably will. So I think back then they'd wish I'd die, but we've all worked with people like that. And when you think back about them, you can figure out that was more than being the boss. They had some deep mental health issues.
Issues, yeah.
Mental health.
Speaking of mental health, I was also on your podcast, which I highly recommend anybody listening, watching to check out Lee's podcast with Jody Mayberry, creating Disney Magic. You told, I remember where I was actually. I was driving to Louisiana. I was going through Texas, and you started telling the story about taking care of your wife
Mm.
and your battle with slowly, I guess, anxiety and depression started creeping in. And I remember being very awed by your vulnerability and being willing to talk about stuff like that, because as high powered executives, leaders, you don't hear people talking like that. You don't want to, they don't want you to see their foibles and the other side, but you were just laying it out there, and I thought it was amazing. Can you tell everybody, just give them a little synopsis
Well, that
of,
was 2016. My wife almost died. She was in the hospital for 67 days, off and on for 2 years. The invoice was $700,000. I still had insurance from Disney, so I was in good shape. And slowly but surely, how it happens is it just wasn't getting better. It was one thing after another, in and out, a fever and this, and next back in again. And so slowly you get to where you can't sleep first. Anxiety causes you not to sleep. And then it's full blown anxiety. That's all you think about. And then it turned into depression. And I was really in bad shape for 6, 7 months. And Priscilla made me go to see a psychiatrist, and he helped me a lot. Helped me understand probably why that was happening from my childhood and how things connect over the years. And the reason I talked about it is because a lot of people already know you got a problem, you
yeah,
know. So I always just, hey, I just lay it out there because and more people were talking about it by then because of all the military generals were starting to talk about it, and everybody was encouraging people to talk about it. And by then, I thought it was probably a good idea to talk about it and to talk about what I did to overcome it. And I
mhm,
had to do a lot. I took caffeine out of my diet, sugar. We quit watching any violent TV. We just put music on. I saw an acupuncturist. I saw a psychologist. I saw a psychiatrist. I exercised every day to try to work that out, walk it, go outside, get some sun. I mean, there were a million things I was doing
yeah,
because if you don't fight it, it gets worse. It won't go away by itself. And I'm going through a little anxiety right now. My wife's got some health problems again. I told her she's trying to kill me, and it's her. This is more physical. It's back issues and things, and I'm
yeah,
having to take care of it. And I'm very aware of being careful about getting back in that situation. So I go out every day and do work in a place which is distracting, and we got a plan now how to have somebody come in if I need to go away for a couple of days or
yeah,
things to do work, and so we better understand it. But it's boy, it's rough, and I guarantee you, half the people on this listening right now are dealing with somebody that's got anxiety and depression. Parents, older
mhm,
people, grandparents, your dad, your husband, from worrying about his job, and what you got to really pay attention to are kids.
yeah,
A
oh
lot of,
yeah,
I mean, they said, I talked to one university, told me 40% of the freshmen needed mental health counseling in the freshman year.
wow,
40%. And the schools don't have enough counselors. So the kids are waiting 3 and 4 and 5 months to get to see anybody, which is dangerous, first of all. And this is a big problem. I think mental health issues right now and anxiety and depression across America for sure and the world are at an all-time high. When you think about it, people are worried about their job, they're worried about their income, their house, their
mhm.
kids. There's a lot to worry about, and you
The
gotta
suicide
be on
rates
top of
in
it.
men, the suicide rates in men, it's like one man dies from suicide every minute. So in the time that you and I have been talking now for, let's see here,
Yeah, 57.
57 people have committed suicide just
Now
in the
it's
time you and I have
real,
talked.
and I tell people, pay attention to the people around you, especially your children. Don't listen to that when you ask them how's everything. They say fine. That's probably not right.
Right.
Get into it. You got to observe their performance. They're are they quiet? Really get into it, and tell them and hug them and tell them you love them and what can you do, and it's okay to talk about it, and because especially girls, high school girls, middle school girls,
A lot of pressure.
and all this social media is creating a big problem that I think is going to get worse. And so we talk about it a lot with our family, with our grandchildren, and to be aware of it, that it's okay. We've
Yeah.
all been there, and me talking about it helped them all to come to realize, because they always thought, gosh, Pappy had depression. I can't believe it. He's perfect.
Mm.
Yeah, well, all grandparents are perfect until they're not. And I have Venmo, that's why they love me. But anyway, it's something if you're gonna teach, you gotta talk about the things that matter, and this matters. And
Mhm.
it try to keep an eye on your friends, neighbors, relatives, because if you pay attention, you can spot it. Because when people get quiet and they don't want to meet anymore, and they always got an excuse and they're withdrawing, worst thing you can do is withdraw and sit at
Yeah.
home yourself. This is deadly. I mean, I didn't even want to have a cup of coffee with people. I didn't care about anything. And then I started taking, these pills and those are deadly. You may feel great and you take one every 6 hours and then you kind of get addicted to them. Then you have to work yourself off of them.
Yeah.
But those pills are deadly. I mean, let me tell you, man, they make you feel so good you can't believe it. You can't wait for 6 hours to go by and get another Xanax.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you get on those things. Now I understand clearly how people get on drugs. I mean,
Mhm.
it was hard for me to get off. I bought a little drug scale and I cut them down every day with an emery board and made them smaller, smaller, smaller. But it's not. Ooh, it's
Mm.
rough. And then you start drinking a little wine with a Xanax. Oh my God. You wake up the next day, you have the worst feeling ever. And I'm sure everybody listening to this today will be aware of, pay attention and go get help.
Mm.
Men don't go get help, women
Right.
do. And I'm telling you, man, go do it before it gets worse. They can help you. About 80% of people can be cured with medication now. And so do it.
The podcast is I've kind of taken interest in Movember, men's health. In the month of November, everybody grows their mustache and tries to raise money for testicular cancer, prostate cancer, and mental health.
Yeah.
Because guys don't talk about it and they need help. And so I think they raised like 60. What do you say? I had him on my podcast last week or two ago, Max Skinner with Movember. But yeah, I have a feeling that this podcast is going to have more subjects about men and mental health and how to kind of help get the word, bang the drum a little bit, and how help guys deal with what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's irresponsible not to deal with it because you're affecting your children, your family, yourself. And if you end up committing suicide, you leave your wife with. I mean, there's so many things that, and society's getting easier to talk about this, but it's got a long way to go. And frankly, in Oklahoma, everybody, we don't talk about those things. We're all perfect. We're good, no problem. Put me in, coach. I'm fine. you know, and just everybody, more people speak up about it, the better we'll all be, and women too.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was depressed back 30 years ago, and after a move we made, she said, "Didn't you and Daniel notice I was laying on the couch depressed for 2 weeks?" And we said, "No, I mean, we weren't paying." You know,
Yeah,
I
that's a
just
guy
thought she was laying on
response.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so you got to look for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure if you think about it, you can figure out some people that probably are going through, and older parents or after bypass surgery, or I mean, there's so many ways it can push you into that place.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
What changing gears just a little bit here. What do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment during your time at Walt Disney World? What was, when you look back, what was a high watermark? What was the, what's the one thing that you can hang your hat on and say, yeah,
Yeah.
we did that, or I did
I
that?
think over time, changing the culture to a more inclusive, treating people better. When I got there, it was 90% white males running the place, and when I left, there were 50% women. Our last president was gay. The president before that was a woman. We changed the whole. I mean, and over the years, I mean, it takes time, but we started
Yeah.
on purpose, looking for minorities, looking for women, making a decision that the way you get promoted here is through performance, not through being around for 10 years. And, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then I wrote the Disney Great Leader Strategies, which became the basis for my book, Creating Magic. And we implemented that. And it was more clarity around what our expectations are, what a leader does, doesn't do, how you treat people, and so you change the culture by education and clarity of expectation. And that's what I spent. I don't know anything about the park business. People ask me, what'd you do at Disney? I said, nothing. I just hired great people in engineering, food, retail, and I let them do their job. And I tried
Mm-hmm.
to help them with staffing, training, and how we treat people. That was my role because I had the authority to do that. And we had to get rid of some people. About 50 executives left the company during that period.
Mm.
Over time, they'd been here 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. They couldn't handle this change of we got to listen to the employees instead of them listen to us.
Yeah.
That was hard. But
Mm-hmm.
times were changing.
Yeah.
The next generation, they don't care what you want. They want to know what's in it for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real. That's real. And if you don't start teaching people what's in it for them and treating them right, you won't have any employees.
Mm-hmm.
These young people don't mess around.
You talked about the free fuel R. Can you explain kind of what R is and why you
Yeah.
would want to?
Well, R is ARE, and I kind of coined that as appreciation, recognition, and encouragement. ARE. That's the fuel that drives all of us. If I show appreciation to you and encouragement and recognition and treat you right, you're probably going to stay and work with me. Uh, If I treat
Yeah.
you like crap, you're probably going to leave.
Yeah.
It's so basic, but we all want it. We all need it. And you light people's life up when every day I said, at least call your mother and tell her how much you love her, if she was still living. You don't
Yeah.
realize the impact that has of saying to somebody, hey, you're doing a great job. I hope you stay with us. You're the kind of person we need here. Boom, that's it. You just change the whole trajectory of their career.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
can do it. It costs nothing. It's free. And we miss opportunities every day. And I've gone a long time before I was the Doberman. Now I'm the Cocker Spaniel, and I make people feel good all day long because it
That's
costs
great.
nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost me a dime. And they like it. I like it. It makes me feel better too, by the
Yeah.
way, when people say, Lee, I love listening to your podcast. I learned a lot from it. I did this. Thank you for calling me back. That gives me the energy too of, we all want to be appreciated.
That is something I'm really impressed with. I really wanted to get in touch with you. I was talking to Valerie Cockerell. She was on my show, not too long ago. And I said, do you think Lee would be on the show? And she goes, oh yeah, you should. And I was like, I can't approach him. He's way up there and I'm just down here. So anyway, one day I got on your LinkedIn profile and you listed your phone number and the contact info. And I was like, are you kidding? He actually puts his phone number out there. So I called your number and you answered. And I was so shocked.
That's
You
what you're
said,
supposed to do. If you got a phone, you're supposed to answer it.
but
You
so
know
many
why I did
people
that?
don't
People
do
say,
that.
why do you put your number on everything? It's in my books too, my number. And I said, because I book more business. You call me and we book it. You don't call somebody else because I didn't answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does blow a lot of people away. And right away, I'm connected and they want to book me. And I said, it sets that initial no hassle.
Yeah. It was
And
no
so
hassle.
I think being available is one of the biggest things you can do in business. Be available for your employees, be available for your customers. Don't have your secretary saying he's not available, he's not here. people want to see you. People want to meet. If they call you, they got a reason. And I get I get some people just call me and I answer the phone. I say, what can I do for you? And they say, nothing. We just wanted to see if you really answer your phone. Because in my book, the customer rules, my phone number's in there.
Yeah.
Because be available is one of the chapters about how to be better, give better service.
Yeah, that was great.
It's just a philosophy, and it's no big deal to me. I'm retired, so I can take a call. But even at Disney, I was available, and I think that makes a big difference because people talk about it behind your back. They say, "Hey, he'll see you. You can go see him."
So if a customer
I
walks
always
into your,
wanted them to call me before they call the newspaper or follow up.
yeah,
Give me a chance to deal with your problem.
if a customer walks into your store and says, "I want to talk to the store manager," do you push them off on your assistant store manager, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think they don't mean the store manager often unless they say that, but they want to meet somebody that's got some authority to take care of the problem they got.
Yeah.
And I might say, yeah, I got system manager here, we'll get him. And if that's not right, then we can get the GM.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so many times people need to, if you're in business, you got to take complaints. That's,
Yeah.
that's part of the job because everything's not fine. We have public supermarkets here, and if the tomato's bruised and I take it back, even if it's not bruised and I don't like it, if it's a perfect tomato, they say, okay, no problem. We're not going to have a discussion over the tomato. They just take it back.
Yeah.
I'll go like, okay, our job is not to argue with customers because we want their credit card. I want them to be happy.
Right.
So yeah, don't argue with customers. Figure out a solution.
One of the things that you said in your podcast that I found interesting, and I'm still kind of a little puzzled by it. You said, no, here we go. Mentors choose the mentee doesn't choose the mentor. Actually, I always thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, I think we choose who we want to mentor. I tell people, people will call me and say, can you be my mentor? And I said, no, not really. A mentor is somebody who needs to be seeing you working, they're with you, they're in meetings with you, and they will tell you the truth. And that's happened in my whole career. I had bosses my boss a couple of times was my mentor and told me the truth and gave me some things I didn't want to hear about me. And probably your wife's one of your best mentors.
Yeah.
And no, I tell people I can't mentor you, but I can give you advice, but I can't observe you in a meeting and say, hey, you shouldn't talk to people like that, or that wasn't the right way to speak to that person. Being a mentor is you got to get to the dirty stuff of not just try to be nice. I got to observe you not doing something and say, hey, listen, let me show you the way you spoke to her in that meeting was inappropriate, and that's not going to be good for your career. And I suggest you go back and apologize to her and tell her. And then in the future, pay more respect to people and mentors are far and few between. We get a lot of advice, but very few people tell us the truth. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
When
that's
you
true.
think about it, our wives do. And if you had a boss that did, you're really lucky because they care about you. They have to care about you to tell you the truth.
That's great.
That's how you have to think about it. Like you tell your kids the truth because you love them and you care about them. That's even though sometimes you don't want to have to discipline your child, but it's same old story. You're getting them ready for a bigger life, and it's a responsibility. You don't have a choice.
You said, or the question I want to ask is, does a leader motivate or inspire?
Yeah, I don't think they motivate. I would say inspire if I had to pick one because, I tell people we hire people for attitude and reliability, but I can't motivate you. If you're not motivated, and we know these people, they were motivated when they were 8 years old to be better than everybody else. They were motivated to be on the football team. They were motivated to make straight A's. They were, but I can create that environment and culture that they work in that's supportive, and they get training, they get development, and they get feedback. Whether that motivates them or not, it depends on the person. And I don't think you can be in the job of motivating everybody. You've got to try to pick the right people who are already motivated to do well. then teach them, but attitude and reliability are hard to teach,
Yeah.
Especially attitude. You hire a really good person who's really good at, you see it in sports teams. Attitude gets people thrown off the team and, or doing the wrong things. And
Right.
I used to say, winning like Disney is like when Oklahoma's not winning football games, there's a problem,
Yeah. Big problem.
And sometimes it's the player got in trouble or, well, all the stuff that happens.
Right.
Um,
My son wanted me to ask a question. I hope you don't mind. I
yeah,
told him I was going to be visiting with you, and he said, I said, do you have any questions you would want me to ask Lee? And he said, yeah. He wanted to know, are there any influential people, books, or mentors who guided you in your years?
yeah. I would say the mentors in my life, number one was my grandmother, who showed me how to be a nicer person, which it took me a long time to learn that, but I understood it. And then I had two bosses over the years. One was at Hilton, who took a personal interest in me and told me the facts of life, and I remember the day I went to work for him in New York. He said, Lee, here's how you're working at the Waldorf now. Don't wear a brown suit after 5 o'clock. You wear a tuxedo if it's in here. You don't smoke in public. If you're drinking in a reception, you drink it out of a glass. That's why they were invented, not out of the bottle. And then he took me every Monday to a different restaurant in New York, taught me the business, showed me. He really cared about me. And then I had one at Marriott who did so too. And he kind of had an upbringing like I did, and he kind of connected with me because I was really very defensive and I always didn't like feedback.
Yeah.
And he told me, Lee, I think the best thing he ever told me, Lee, the whole world does not revolve around Lee Cockrell. We're talking about a business problem here. Just take care of your customers. Don't be in here telling me it's not your fault.
Yeah.
And I thought, the whole world, yeah, because I was thinking, oh my God, everybody knows it's not me. Because we get defensive and we want to blame somebody else.
Yeah.
And he straightened me out. And every time I did it, he said, Lee, Lee, Lee. And eventually I got over it. But
Yeah.
luckily, I tell you, I was lucky because maybe I wouldn't have had the success because people don't like to work with defensive people. That's never their fault, and they always blame somebody else. And we know
Yeah.
those people. All of us do. We don't want to
Yeah.
work with them. We don't want them around. We don't want to hire them. They make our lives stressful. So I was lucky to have those two. Yeah.
Who was it that told you the reason why you have flies is because you like flies?
Yeah, Mr. Marriott did. He came to my hotel in Philadelphia. We were walking the business, and we went out on the back dock where the trash dumpster is. There were flies all over the place, and went back in, and there were flies in the building. We didn't have the wind curtains and the fans and all. And got up, and there was few flies in the restaurant. And that's when he told Lee, if you have flies, you like flies because there's a lot you can do about it. And I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. And it's kind of like if you have rude children, you must like that. If you're like, and that's where I came, this issue of it's probably your fault.
Hmm.
They're there. Why are they there? You don't have flies in your house
Yeah.
because when it gets in, what do? You
Yeah.
start closing doors to kill it. But in work, or if you drop a napkin on the floor or a spoon or fork at home, you pick it up. In businesses, you see people just,
Hmm.
yeah, you're the role model. You're setting the example. That was the best thing he ever told me.
Hmm.
I got it, Mr. Merritt. Thanks, sir.
I can take care of that.
And again, he was just right straightforward. He didn't care whether I liked it or not.
Should you take care of your business or your people?
I would say people, because basically the businesses are complex and half the stuff people are doing, you don't have a clue what they're doing and you don't know how they do it. And you don't know how well they do it. They do it, I think, at a higher level because of the way they're treated. And I think that's the key in life. If I treat you well, you'll do well. And if I treat you respectfully and include you and involve you and train you and develop you and make sure you're having a go, and I touch base with you and make sure you're important and that you matter. That's mainly the job of a leader. And and especially today, it's so complicated. All the technology, you can't know 10% of what people are doing.
Right.
And I always said, your boss has no idea what you're doing, but make sure he's not screwing you up and
Yeah.
depressing you and bothering you, and have that relationship where they know I care and I'm available. When they have a problem, you come to me. I'm not going to be coming to you every day criticizing you. You come to me, and then the culture gets good, and we feel fun, and then we're happy. And I wake up in the morning, I want to go to work, not have to go.
Yeah.
And, so it's culture is a very sensitive thing. At home, at work, we all know. You've been in them.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen them in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know right now where they are, or friends
Right.
that have bad culture at home, or bad marriage, or the kids are
Yeah.
not happy or in trouble. And people ask me, how you doing, Lee? And I said, well, Priscilla hasn't left me and nobody's on rehab. So no, we're doing pretty good. That's the best thing we can do right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In your book, Customer Rules, you said one of your chapters was don't make promises, make guarantees. That sounds
Yeah.
pretty scary.
Yeah, and
What did you mean by
I
that?
think I saw that from the stores I go to here and started thinking about it. Yeah, we always, that old saying, promises, promises. And people don't follow up, don't do it. But guarantees kind of a legal thing. I guarantee you, and that kind of sends you in a message that you're going to be responsible to make sure this happens. I guarantee you and so this store guarantees that any problem you have, they'll go in your favor. And Mr. Marriott told me that too. He said, Lee, anytime you're in doubt, go in favor of the guest. Anytime you're in doubt, go in favor of your employees. If you're not sure. I had a customer recently who I spoke to, and I had a pretty big fee, and they were not happy with the whole thing and thought I should not charge them as much. And I said, no, I don't give discounts, I don't. And I thought about it for about a week. And then I said, this guy, okay, you're not happy. And I thought about it. I wasn't feeling well that way. Maybe he's right. And we went too long. And so I sent him a check, I went in his favor, and I got and it was fine. I feel better about it because I think he was a super guy. He wasn't trying to screw me. And so there's times when, a lot of us want to be defensive with a guest that's not happy. Oh, no, well, I don't want to give a refund. Most people are not trying to screw you.
Right.
Most. And you got to be careful you don't put policies in place for those few that do. Because it'll change your approach and your attitude and how you treat your customers, and your employees are watching that, how you deal with it. So it's complicated every day. Yeah.
You started your podcast, I don't know, when was that? 2004?
10 years ago. We're approaching 500 episodes now. We never missed a Tuesday in 10 years. Man. Every Tuesday, and it's only 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
That just blows my mind.
People are busy, and yeah. So we went over 4 million downloads recently, and it's rated in the top 0.5% of all podcasts.
What made you decide to get into podcasting? What was it about it that you said, you know what, this is something I think
I didn't. This guy called me, Jody Mayberry, who was a park ranger in Washington State and state pain. He said, would you be on my podcast? He had a podcast called Parks and Recreation. He was talking about state parks.
Yeah.
I said, okay, blah, blah. He called, we recorded it, and he called me back in 3 months, said, have you ever thought about having your own podcast? I said, Jody, I didn't even know what a podcast was when you called me. I said, I'll do it, but I'm not doing any work. All I'll do is talk. You edit it, you promote it, you do. I don't want to hear about any work because I don't know how to do half this stuff anyway.
Yeah.
We started, and it's been 10 years. That's why we do things like depression and how to raise your kids and how to hire and how to fire and how to make your wife happy. It's fun, but it's 15 minutes, and we're even trying to get it down to 10 or 12 because people go fast. And so it's been fun. I think people have learned from it. I get a lot of great notes from people saying, boy, it helped me a lot. I never thought about that. And no question, it's popular because it's a lot of Disney,
Yeah.
If it was Lee Cockrell, nobody had listened to it, but the guy who ran, I get some credit because I was at Disney. And,
so how do you choose your topics and your guests? Is that something you do or Jody does?
Jody, I never know what he's going to bring up. When we get listener questions. People send in questions they want us to answer. And we only probably had, in 5 years or in 10 years, we probably had 10 guests overall. We don't do guests really very often.
Yeah.
And so he just has some question for me. Lee, what do you think? We had a customer ask this, and I talk about it. And I think that's the best way, because I don't want it to be overproduced and me to work real hard to get the exact right answer. Sometimes I have to say, I have no idea. We'll find out and we'll talk about it on the next show, because you got to just let it go like we're doing today. Just let it go. That's when the best answers come out and the best ideas. And I think a lot of these things are too overproduced. I see, they got all the right background and all that.
Music.
Say the perfect thing. Yeah, the music. No, ours is pretty raw, just out there. It's the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And looking back on your show, is there a show? I'd be interested to know if you've got a show that sticks out in your mind, if that you thought was, I don't know, remarkable or memorable, or they're all great, but is there one that you think that was a really good one?
Well, there is no doubt that you've already mentioned the one on depression we had the most feedback on that from all over the world, because that's when I realized this is a big issue. I mean, we heard from people everywhere about, I wish my boss would deal with this. I wish my boss would talk about this. And I think the way we handled 9/11 was a big one. People learned you got to be ready for something. Make sure you're ready now. You don't know what's going to happen, but something could happen, and prepare for it and anticipate it and get all of what you need and the training in place. So when it happens, everybody knows what to do. And so those kind of things. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have the listeners. I was surprised the other day. We just learned that it was in the top 0.5%, and I think it's because it's practical.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we all got the same problems.
Yeah.
That's what I know. Everybody's got the same problems.
Yeah.
They're worried and they need to do better and they want to do better.
We all think we're dealing with something. We're the only ones dealing with it.
Yeah, the CEO of every company's got the same problems you and I got. And there's no new problems. All the problems in the world are people. Every problem you have in your life is a person.
Yeah, that's so
I
true.
say I didn't major in hotel and restaurant administration. I majored in people, because that's where the solutions are.
I ask every guest, and I got so nervous at the beginning, I forgot to ask you the question I ask everybody is, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Actually, I have the same thing every morning. I have a bowl of grapes, blueberries, walnuts, a banana sliced up with 3 scoops of strawberry yogurt on it, non-sugar. And that's what I have every day.
Sounds healthy.
And then I might go to my coffee place and have something I shouldn't have, but pretty much I really focus on taking care of myself, because when you're 80, it's kind of important. I said I'm in the ozone, the obituary zone. And I never worry about dying. I worried about being, sick for the last 20 years of my life, or not feeling well, or not being able to walk, or being in a walker or wheelchair. So I have a trainer I work out with twice a week on strength, agility, and balance. And those things matter.
Yeah.
I mean, strength training, I can tell you, that alone will turn your life around. I'm in better shape now, and I weigh 5 pounds less than I did when I was 20. And it's because I pay attention to it, because I know I quit drinking alcohol because I wasn't sleeping well. And I finally I said, okay, I had to quit 7 times because I like it. And it's hard. And I took sugar out of my diet, and it's hard.
Yeah.
But I sleep. So boy, when you get a good night's sleep, it's all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And when you don't get a good night's sleep, you just don't want to do things. And
right.
And when you get older, it matters, I mean, I'm traveling and look around. People walking bent over.
Yeah.
Not exercising, not having a strong core. These are all things you can do. half the people where I work out are 70 years old, 65. We had a lady come in a wheelchair, and 3 months later, she's out of it.
Wow.
It's from strengthening.
Impressive.
And one of the indicators of a problem with your back and doing that is you see people in the grocery store using the cart to bend
Yeah.
over. Back surgeons say that's one of the main indicators you got a problem is when people start using the cart to
Yeah. I see
support
that a
themselves.
lot. Yeah.
And you see a lot of that. And
Mhm.
that can be rectified. That can be rectified. But exercise is hard, so people don't do it.
Yeah, you talk about that. I've heard you talk before about doing the hard thing. Just focus on doing the hard thing. It's a lot of times it's not that hard, but you just think it's hard, but some things truly are hard.
They
But
are.
we just don't want to be uncomfortable.
And when you don't deal with them, they get harder.
Yeah.
You really screwed it up because you let it go.
Yeah.
And your body is one of them. If you let it go, it'll go.
It's like an employee. If you don't handle an employee, or someone's got
Oh
a
my God.
behavioral issue, and you don't deal with it, then that it grows, and it also kind of spreads to other employees maybe, and then you've got a real problem on your hands because you didn't choose. Now it's even harder because now you got to deal with this person and maybe some others now.
And it ruins your reputation because people wonder why you're not dealing with it.
Yeah.
Well, everybody understands why does he let that happen? Why doesn't he talks about it, but he didn't do anything about it? And so it hurts you too, your credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And people will do what you let them do.
Yeah.
If you have kids, you know that. I said, trust no teenager; they lie. Yeah.
My son would always look at me and go, "How did you know that?" I was like,
Yeah,
"Dads just know
right.
things,
We know.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to cut it off before it gets worse, or they get into serious trouble. And it's not always fun, but it's better than what could happen if you don't deal with it.
Any last words? Anything you want to say? As we wrap this up, what tell the listeners
I
out
always
there?
tell people, I think there's two things that hold people back. One, people underestimate what they can achieve because it's hard, and they just, and my mother wasn't nice to me, and and the other thing, they underestimate their influence every day, how much better they can make people's lives just by being a nice person,
Mm-hmm.
but complaining about everything, and yeah, understand it's probably your fault anyway. To quit blaming Biden and Trump.
Yeah.
I told there's no president's ever had any impact at all on my life. None. Yeah.
Well, I just want to tell the folks out there, as far as books go, you've got 4: Creating Disney Magic, The Customer Rules, Time Management Magic, Career Magic, and then your podcast, Creating Disney Magic, which you can listen to on wherever you get your podcasts. Your website, leecockerell.com. That's a good place. A lot of good information there, good resources. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested, you want Lee to come to your, I'm speaking for you now, but I guess that's okay. If you have you need a speaker, a keynote, I've heard him personally. That was great. I still remember the tie that you wore. It was kids on the
Give kids the world, and I still wear it.
Oh,
It's all
yeah.
I have
Really?
because people like it, so I
Yeah.
just wear it,
Yeah.
and it makes people think I'm nice because it has children on it. I fool them, but yeah, I have a learning site, Cockerell Academy.
Oh, that's right.
10 courses. We have a newsletter that's subscription rate and has good training on it. There's a bunch of stuff. They can go to leecockerell.com. There's anything you want. That's where we put it. So it's there, and it's great to be with you. And
Yeah.
My connection to Oklahoma, man.
Yeah. For Lee Cockrell, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for watching, listening to the Scott Townsend Show. Have a great day. Everything's going to be all right. And we'll talk to you later.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Dietzo Man production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.